Jared Knowles and Caroline Passion for being really superb managers of this entire process and review. Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioners, the next item is number 6, which is an application for a certificate of appropriateness at 605 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District, docket number 15-6543, block 1399, lot 74, an apartment building designed by Sylvan Bean and built in 1953 to 54. And the application is to replace windows, enclose terraces, and modify ground floor and install a canopy. This was initially heard on June 6, 2014, and June 3rd, 2014.
Good morning, Commissioners. Gabrielle Gutowski, Preservation staff. Welcome, new Commissioners. This application is for 605 Park Avenue. It's located in the Upper East Side Historic District on the corner of East 65th and Park Avenue. It was presented, it was read into the record once in June and presented in June as well on the 10th. And at that time, there were multiple components to the presentation, which I'll briefly cover. Enclosing the remainder of the open balconies, replacing 100% of the windows, installing through-wall mechanical sleeves, recladding the base of the building, modifying ground floor openings, and installing a new entrance canopy. At that time, in June of this year, the Commission expressed concerns about 2 components. One, the stone that was being proposed was a limestone for the recladding at the base, and the Commissioners had concerns with the color of the stone and how it would relate to the upper floor, specifically the white brick. And secondly, the location of the new ground floor infill. In June, it was proposed that the ground floor infill at 2 bays would align with the Park Avenue facade. Currently and historically, those 2 bays were set back, so the applicant is back today, and the new infill will be set back, not as far back as existing, but still back from the Park Avenue facade. And the new stone being proposed is 2 shades of marble, which the architect has an example of, and Barry Rice is here to answer any questions. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay, we'll reopen the hearing. Second.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hello to new Commissioners. I'm Barry Rice Architect. We're architect for this project. We are here to respond to comments from the last time we came in front of you with the placement of the stone, an alternative to the stone replacement at the base of this building. Sylvan Bean did many of these perhaps beloved, perhaps not white brick buildings on the Upper East Side, and in our survey of looking at the other members of this family, we found that most of them in fact had marble at the base, a material that as architects we kind of steer away from a little bit because of our climate. But we agreed that the limestone we had proposed would have made this building distinct from its family members on the Upper East Side. So here we have today some samples for the base of the building of a limestone that will be honed. Honing happens by nature. If we start with a polished finish, so we'd rather sort of jump the gun and make it all look evenly honed throughout the building. There is some subtle veining in this stone, which is also common with most of the whiter stones used on the Upper East Side buildings. This stone here would be applied to the bulk of the base of the building. Let me see if I can work this. The base of the building is 2 stories high, and that's where the stone will go here. There is a different stone at the columns or pilati that form an accent at the entrance to the building. And that stone would be of this character with veining, selected from a single block with sequence veining, so that we're not book matching, but we're sequencing the patterns on the columns that then ties to the interior of the stone that's within the lobby of the building. At the base of the building, we are proposing, I'll go to a close-up picture here. The base of the building, we're proposing a granite water table. Fairly traditional use of granite, a planed finish, provide a more resilient surface to protect the marble at the base. And we believe that the cooler palette of this matches the cool hue of the brick much better, more successfully than the limestone. So that's the stone. The second concern that was expressed last time was the fact that when we originally proposed the renovation of the storefront at the base, we pulled the glass forward, thereby sort of losing the sense of these columns supporting the larger reading of the opening at the base. So in response, we have moved the glass to the rear, in fact, just behind the rear of these columns, and we have done away with the planter that exists today, and we have recessed a small step here made of the same stone, the polished granite. Those are the two main concerns. So I'm willing to take questions if there's any more.
All right. I just want to clarify to the new commissioners particularly that the scope of this project also included enclosing the balconies that over time have been enclosed, and also changing the windows to make them all uniform. Is that correct? So I just want you to know that was a scope that I think at the last hearing the commissioners felt comfortable with, but you should know that that's also part of the project itself. Are there questions? Yes, Roberta?
What is the material currently of the base? Is it marble already?
It is a marble, yes, it's a gray marble. Yeah.
And you didn't happen to bring a brick sample?
Indeed, we did.
Well, I just wanted to.
There's the cool one.
The existing brick, yeah, just to, I mean, I'm just saying against the, so how does that really, you're saying that your marble is the one that works best with that
So,
brick?
if I may, put that there.
Yeah.
And we can hold the brick. Yeah.
Perfect. Projector light.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Just to follow up on that.
Yes, Adi, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, in addition to your question, the existing does not have a differentiated marble base. It does? But it-
It's like a gray granity kind of.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that? That one's-
It's funny, because in the photograph, it doesn't look at all, I mean, it looks the same. That looks like
Yeah.
dirt.
Right,
It's dirt.
that's it.
It's
It
dirt.
is. It's dirt.
It's dirt. So it is a sort of a medium to dark grey, the existing marble, and it's turned growty, sort of darker grey at the base. There is no water table at the rest of the building at the base.
Okay,
So
one
why-
more time. That base, whatever that is, 18 inches,
Yes.
20 inches,
This
is a
is a new
different
base?
material. Yes, I
It
know.
does not exist.
That's my question. So there is no articulation of base in the, of that line in the
Correct.
original building.
Correct. That is correct.
And why is it being, so it's being replaced because it's not working, or why is it being?
The marble is in very bad condition. It's cracking and splitting. It hasn't weathered well. Marble is a material that really does have a limited life in many cases in the city, and particularly at the base here, it's weathering.
And one more question about, had you already discussed the removal of this little garden piece?
Yes,
Had
I
that already-
mentioned that we, by moving the lobby window forward to the rear of these, the garden piece will go. Yes.
Right. So, question,
So go ahead, Adi.
in comment or question?
All right, so yeah, they are removing the garden, and I think the issue that was raised by the commissioners last time is where they were, in the enclosure, where the glass line would be. And my understanding is there were some concerns about ensuring that you still get this depth so that these columns are revealed. And in response to that, they've changed the plane at which they've put the glass, and they've set it back to, in fact, have some depth and recess.
Right. So, my feeling is that the newer
Also,
version,
I think also, just to
Yeah.
clarify, that this building is a part of the historic district, but it is identified as a no-style building. And I think that when we create our districts, we identified, and we can talk about the nomenclature, whether that's the right nomenclature, but an understanding is the buildings that really contribute to the historic district are identified, and the ones that are considered no-style are typically buildings that are included in the district geographically, but may not necessarily be the contributors to the historic district. And so it identifies for the commission how we feel about removals of certain pieces, because they're not considered necessarily historic aspects of the building that are being removed and replaced. It has, our view of no-style buildings is very, very different from the Commission's view on contributing buildings. So
Right.
that's kind of a guideline.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you accept that buildings built 20 years after international style, that make reference to international style by virtue of the pilotis and the recessed little garden element is in fact no style. I mean, I understand the premise, but I don't know how to name it.
Right, so
Yeah.
I think that it's a nomenclature problem, so I think that, so no style is, I mean, obviously things have style, right? So it's really best to think of this as a building that was deemed not to be a reason for the district's designation.
Yeah.
And therefore, its significant architectural features were deemed not to contribute to the distinct sense of place for which this district was designated. So the commission has always, again, it has not said no style, no style not contributing, therefore anything goes. We've
Right.
still regulated in the context of its relation to other buildings in the district, and also in relation to its own inherent rational architectural sort of design. So, but that said, much more flexibility has been exercised in reviewing changes to buildings that have deemed, not buildings for which a district has been designated.
Right. And I think also it's important for the Commission to recognize that just in terms of sort of the hierarchy itself, which is you have buildings that are individual landmarks. I think the Commission's involvement and its analysis of removal of features is very, very different. And I think the next level is really contributing buildings in historic districts. So when we get to the no-style building, there is a recognition that the removal of these features will not, in fact, detract from the historic district and its appropriateness.
Yeah. I do think that getting rid of the inset of the entire opening, which is what that garden gives you, that the opening is that, whatever that is, 30 feet, as the entry to the building, does really change the quality of the experience on the street with respect to, in relation to the building. So I would lament the loss of that threshold. And so that's just my perspective on it. But I also think that the introducing a base at that dimension that has really no reference to much other than the bottom of the window. I think that the white was meant to continue all the way throughout, again, on this building that is no style, however you define it. And so I'm also would object to the going to dark and propose to continue the white.
Is there any reason why you cannot continue to do the marble all the way to the ground?
No reason at all, other than it will start to look that darker color, and the distinct band at the base will cause the marble to deteriorate, even if it's cleaned every few years.
How long was that base, the old bottom?
I believe this is the original base from 1950.
So it took it some time to get to the point where it had to be replaced. So I don't know, it could be like, it could still be.
Right.
Well, I could just add that
Yes.
in looking at the other white brick buildings in the neighborhood, that some of them actually do have this band at the base. The same architect was quite prolific in the neighborhood. And there are examples of whiter marble, there are examples of darker marble being used, and examples where there is in fact a distinct base at the bottom. So my personal view is it's part of this family of buildings with that base on it.
And what is the material of the concrete at the entrance? Or is that concrete, or is that another material? Right.
I'm sorry, this is actually a flamed stone also. This is a flamed granite on the sidewalk.
So is that black? Is that-
It's the same stone as this, but it's a rougher flaming. It's the same stone as horizontally.
And that's what you're using for the base?
This is what we're using for the base.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we can close the hearing then. All right. So just on the discussion of some of the issues that have come up right now, on the issue of the garden, I think we should recognize that you may occasionally have buildings with gardens. They are not contributing to the historic district. The district is very strong street wall district. You may find a building every now and then that provides it, but I think the commission has to ask the question of not whether they think this building shouldn't have that intervention, but the intervention itself is whether that is appropriate in sort of the context of this historic district. So I understand you lament the fact that this garden baby.
Let me just correct.
Yes.
Not garden per se. In other words, it's not that it needs to have green things growing in it, but the setback, the opening, the portal, which has the dimension that it has all the way. In other words, the portal is actually.
Yes,
all
I can
of
see
this.
it, right.
You know, this is the doorway, the
Right.
entire length, and that's
Right.
undermined when it's, when you bring the glass up to the.
It is undermined in and of itself, but I think that, again, we, as a commission, have to recognize previous commissions and their wisdom in, I think it puts it in sort of designating the district. I think it puts us in a position where we may, in some ways, be taking on things that were not really anticipated for the commission to do. So, of course, I respect that it will change it, but again, is that intervention inappropriate, or do we feel that this is appropriate in terms of filling in this portion and still retaining the depth and changing the colors that are more reflective of what there is right now? So it's something to think about. Other questions and comments? Yes, Fred?
I think Addie's point is an interesting one. I hadn't really thought of it quite like that, maybe. But you look at the proportional system of this building, and you can see what the architect was trying to do down there. Put a symmetrical piece in the middle, even though the door was off to the center. My mind was focused on the word garden, which I think this is not. It's called a planter. And I think a garden, to be a garden, maybe should, be open to the sky. So this never was. I can't imagine it's a very successful planter either. So I'm wrestling with the new perspective I have with which Addie has just illuminated me. I also have to say, I think Sylvan Bean must be amused at this point that so much talk is being given to this building, probably more than he gave it himself when he designed it. But such is life. Anyway, I cut to the chase. I think, given those things in this new way I have of looking at the building base, I think I can accept the proposal as it's given. I don't think there's anything holy grail with having marble go down and touch the sidewalk. And it's been proved that that's a kind of a deficient thing to have light surface right there. So I think this is an improvement. It certainly doesn't change the overall character of the building. I'm not opposed to making the white marble, which is lighter than is there now. I think that's okay as well. I guess I'm okay with bringing the line of the building out and eliminating the planter. But it's a close call there.
Yes. Michael?
I think the design is an interesting one. I think that the white marble, first of all, the window proposal was fine last time, it's fine, okay, fine this time, no changes. I think that the retention of the expression of the overall shape of the base is improved this time because the windows are set back better. And I think maybe a possible solution that the applicant could consider with the staff might be to just lower the granite base down and have it go all the way, maybe have it come out to the face of the columns and go straight across, and it would kind of then go away. And it would also, one thing that kind of bugs me a little bit about it is that the planter, crappy as it certainly was in its current form, cigarette butts and dog, whatever, I think it designates or tries to designate anyway a zone that's like the buildings, like a public outdoor space for the building, vestigial and vestigial as it is. And maybe by bringing the granite forward, you kind of maybe assert that a little bit better. But I mean, these are all kind of details. But I too think it's okay as is. And if they wanted to mess with it, it could only get a little bit better. I mean, the marble on the columns, though, will look like hell pretty soon.
I'm sorry, will look like?
The marble on the columns, the
Yeah.
more decorative veiny marble, will probably not do so well over time.
Okay. Other comments? All right, so let me see if I can sort of wrap this up. I think generally, I think people support it. Addie, I know you have some concerns about that, just enclosing it. The issue of whether there is a granite band at the lower level for, I think, more so for practical reasons. I don't believe detracts from the character of either this building or the district overall, but if the commissioners feel strongly about it, we could ask them to remove it. It really is a matter of, I think, choice. And, Roberta, you identified this as an issue. I don't know if it's your hell-bent that it should be done. Yes, whether you feel strongly about having...
Oh, no, I think that I would prefer with the light, but then I also have, I have questions about why the columns aren't dark any longer either, so I don't know. I don't want to, I think I don't really want to get into the whole reason.
Okay, but you can support the project? Okay, all right. All right, so then why don't we read the resolution? Michael, would you like to read that, please?
The matter of 605 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District, an application to replace windows, enclosed terraces, modified ground floor, and install a canopy. I recommend approval, finding that a number of balconies at the Park Avenue elevation were closed at the time of designation, and since designation, several balconies have been enclosed with Landmarks Preservation Commission permits. Therefore, enclosing the remaining 10 balconies at the Park Avenue elevation will unify the facade, create a symmetrical fenestration pattern at the building. That the proposed balcony infill featuring a fixed aluminum picture window flanked by 2 operable casement windows and horizontally divided bronze railing will be in keeping with the building's existing fenestration pattern and will incorporate decorative railings original to the building. That the proposed gray window finish and bronze railings will be harmonious with the white brick facade and the building's existing color palette. That the proposed through-the-wall HVAC units will be installed in areas of plain masonry centered beneath window openings and installed in a consistent pattern at the facades. That combining window openings at the Park Avenue ground floor will remove only a small amount of masonry, and the proposed tripartite windows will be in keeping with the enlargement of upper floor windows. That the display windows on Park Avenue ground floor will remain set back from the facade, will maintain the symmetry of the facade, and will not alter any significant features of the facades. That the new granite base and white-colored marble cladding at the Park Avenue ground floor will complement and harmonize with the white brick at the upper floors and recall the building's original color palette. That the sidewalk canopies are common features at other apartment buildings within this historic district, and the proposed canopy is consistent with others on the block, and that the design of the canopy is simple and will harmonize with the design of the facade in terms of size, color, and placement.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Aye.
This application's passed.